Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your power behind the voice on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okun. Yes, we are still in the era of anatomy of clinical importance. And my friends, this is today's case study. A 70-year-old man presents with difficulty and painful swallowing, that is dysphagia, and a reduced gag reflex. This individual has a history of cerebrovascular accident, that is stroke, and was, of course, brought to the hospital for management. Now, the first question for us is that this individual having reduced gag reflex. Now, I want to understand what are the components as far as this gag reflex is concerned. Now, yes, of course, we know that reflexes, so generally what they are going to do is to protect an individual from, of course, danger. Okay, that is an important thing that you need to understand. And so for the gag reflex, something we also call pharyngeal reflex, one thing we understand is that it is that kind of reflex which is, of course, going to take place to ensure that, of course, food, or for instance, all those foreign materials will not get into, of course, the airway. So it's one important mechanism. Now, by way of the important components, first of all, we need what we call sensory receptors. So as far as this reflex, this pathway is concerned, yes, as far as, yes, looking at, of course, the postural wall of the pharynx, looking at, for instance, the epiglottis, looking at what we call the posterior anterior portion of the tongue, yes, looking at the tonsillar area. I mean, all those areas, yes, the important thing we need to understand is that there will be that kind of sensory receptors, which of course will be carried via what we call the ninth nerve. That is, of course, the glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, so that's the afferent pathway, the sensory pathway through which, of course, the sensation, okay, the thing that is going to cause, where it's going to elicit this reflex, is going to take place. Okay, and then one important thing is that these, signals will be sent, of course, into what we call the brainstem. Precisely, we are talking about the medulla oblongata. Now, at the level of the medulla oblongata, we have an important nucleus, which of course we talk about nucleus of what we call tractus serratus. Okay, that is an important nucleus over there, which of course, is going to, receive it, and then all those inputs, yes, are going to take place in, of course, the medulla oblongata. Now, understand that the nucleus of tractus serratus is under general visceral, afferent. Okay, so I'm talking about the afferent pathway. That is what is going to happen. And then still in the medulla oblongata, one thing that we appreciate is that, of course, all those computations, the processing will take place in there. And this time around, via what we call nucleus ambiguous. Okay, yes, where is, of course, under what we call the SVE column, special visceral efferent column. Okay, the signals, okay, will be, of course, the motor output will be sent via, this time around, not the glossopharyngeal nerve, but of course the vagus nerve. And then the motor output, yes, will reach, the wall of the pharynx. So that, of course, there's that kind of contraction, and then also even it will cause elevation of what we call the soft palate. All in all, we want to ensure that, of course, the food particle or whatever will not get into the airway. Now, we appreciate that this patient, yes, has stroke, cerebrovascular accident. Okay, so it tells you that there's some kind of neurological issue. Okay, there could be rupture of some blood vessels, okay, which of course may be supplying some important areas in the brain, and therefore some of these reflexes may be affected. Not only that, there could be a situation where, of course, even the glossopharyngeal nerve itself, okay, the sensory fibers over there may be affected. Even the vagus nerve itself could be injured, and all these things could result in, of course, reduced gag reflex. Of course, some infections, of course, in the area of the pharynx could be, implicated in that regard. Now, one important thing we need to understand is that, yes, as far as this gag reflex is concerned, it is protective. And so when you are not able to, do these things, then one important complication that one may experience will be, of course, dysphagia. Okay, so we're talking about dysphagia, that kind of difficulty in swallowing, painful swallowing. Okay, that is of course one of the things which can happen, of course, including aspiration. So one may aspirate some particles and may enter the airway, yes, may cause some kind of choking and all that. Now, having said these things, there are some individuals, okay, very little population of the, individuals, what we see is that they may not experience this gag reflex. Some individuals do have hypersensitive, area, say that the gag reflex that takes place is, so pronounced, is so aggressive. And that is why some individuals, even after touching, yes, the uvula, yes, going to the area of the pharynx, okay, the oropharyngeal area, then one thing that may happen, it may elicit a vomiting reflex. So I believe that you find this meeting helpful, okay, so that of course, my friends, you try to understand some of these concepts. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.